So in 2012, on the 27th of August, there was this massive flash flood. And sitting on the top of a shop and like looking at all these businesses trying to save all their products and trying to get out of their businesses in search of a life, or in search of trying to just save whatever they can in what little time they had, was something that struck me so bad that amongst those businesses was my dad. So I asked him a question about, you are being helped as a community member, what about your business? And he told me that it doesn't matter. They think that we are business owners and we are able to survive. We have money. So with that motivation, I started on this research about small businesses, because almost every media, every document, every assessment on disaster talks about private sector, community, households, and individuals. But within a private sector, a large component of news is on business. But what about small business? Private sector accounts for a large sector itself. It includes all these various sectors, agriculture, tourism, you name it. But within this private sector, a large number of businesses quantifiably are made up of small and medium-sized enterprises. At the negotiation space, we talk about private-public sector partnership, strengthening them so that they can build resilience. That was me at COP last year, seeing the president jump off after the signing of the Marrakesh document on public-private sector partnership. This is this year's enhancement document about the first ever signed deal about public-private sector partnership. And on the lower picture is a meeting on building disaster risk resilience. But how many of these individuals that attend this meeting or are invited in these spaces are members of small and medium-sized organizations? None. Or maybe perhaps one if we are lucky. These are the gaps in research, and this is why this research is cynical for me. And as the son of a small micro-sized owner, I embarked on this journey knowing and believing that there is something that must be out there for the Pacific, for Fiji, or so forth. However, unfortunately, I found nothing. I know that in Asia, 90% of the businesses are small businesses. In Europe, 99% of businesses are small businesses. For a small island nation of Fiji, 72% of the total businesses are small businesses, which provides for 60% of the total employment and 12% of the total GDP. Hence, however, they are still not provided any support. So, I'm asking the question on how have these businesses been affected? Yes, we know that they are vulnerable. Compared to bigger businesses, they are vulnerable because of its nature. They also operate in informal spaces and its characteristic. Perhaps one or two. Every day we go to a bread shop or a convenience shop and we see how many people are working in these shops. Now imagine this is their livelihood and this is being taken away from them. So, acknowledging the vulnerability of this small business given its nature and its characteristics, I wanted to do a research that focused on how have they been impacted. So sharing the narratives, the untold stories of resilience, of the preparedness, of how they've coped. And in the context of Fiji, for a small island developing states where on average 4 disasters per year occurs, and how these businesses are still in the coping phase before being affected by the next disaster. Also, in acknowledging the impact which most of us are already aware of, to share the unique perspectives of how they have adapted over time, which is prepared for, coped with, and recovered from natural disasters. So, 7 months ago, or 9 months ago, I spent 7 months in the field interviewing different individuals. And one part of the interview process was interviewing small businesses. So I interviewed 60 businesses. And one of the methods of data collection as well was direct observation to see what they were doing. Unfortunately, on the 23rd of October 2018, there was a flood that was 7 feet 4, and I was amongst the businesses while doing the interview. Bam, realization, how can I continue my interviews when these businesses are affected? What can I do? Can this research contribute anything more? Because I am going to interview people that are vulnerable, people that have come through this phase. So I came back, went back to the field, did another round of interview, and looked at all the documents that is currently available in Fiji and in the Pacific to see how many has actually mentioned small businesses. So going on to share some of the results and one part of my PhD on the business side. So impact, we talk about impact in a large sense, and here we are looking at 3 common things that came out. Most of the businesses since 2018 flash floods, which is the most recent one, still remain closed. And one of the reasons why they close is because of direct or indirect impact. Direct, pretty given because of the loss that is incurred from the impact of the disaster. And indirect is mostly those things that are beyond their control. Because post-disaster, roads break, there is no electricity. For a small island developing state such as Fiji, these challenges are unique. However, they are still not being documented. So it's giving the voice or the narrative of the untold stories, of the frontline truths of what's happening on the field. The second important component is the psychological stress. One, as a researcher, where I can only speak so much about it because I'm not in their shoes. So, but interviewing them and seeing them burst with emotions and trying to tell me that no one comes and asks me how I am. No one comes and sees how I have coped with the impact of the last disaster before I get affected again, before another flood comes. And just seeing that they have nothing but that little hope inside that this is my livelihood, I need to do something, is one that made me more motivated and inspired that I need to tell this untold story. And lastly, in terms of impact, on the flip side, it's the opportunity. So from that picture in the first slide, you will see that most of the disasters entering the space are able to capitalize on the experience and then therefore do preparedness and so forth. So how have they overcome this? Naturally, you might think, okay, news, there is like, now we have social media, Facebook is so tech savvy, we have TV, you have weather forecast, they would be able to get. Not true for small businesses. The reality in the case of Ba province, which is the worst affected province of Fiji, is they rely on local knowledge, which means they go and physically check the depth of the water, they physically analyze the rainfall and then react to the adaptation policies or adaptation strategies that they have. Second, it's like a village. They are very knitted together, meaning that they rely on each other, not only pre-disaster to inform each other, but also post-disaster because they ask each other if they are doing okay, if they are able to help, if they need any help. Even if it's not financial help, it's cleaning help, but they are there. Next, attitudinal shifts. So this is a business that is owned by the local town council. However, the town council has this nice grand rule that if you want to make any changes to the business, it is at the cost of your own. So yes, it's the local government that's owning the property, but these are new businesses. Because of the experience, they don't care that, okay, even if I'm renting, which literature has shown in other parts of the world, they still make that shift and build it because this is their source of livelihood. And last, coping culture. I call it coping culture because these businesses, there is no alternative. There is no closing my business and going to do something else because a large number of them do not have the necessary qualifications to pursue another job or to do something else. So, and it's legacy, it's passed on from generation to generation. So they try to operate because this is their source of livelihood. So in conclusion, I have one conclusion, that SMEs matter. They form a large part of the business sector. They also form a large part of private sector. And there is lack of policies that are currently being made that include the voices of young businesses that are entering the business market and also SMEs. And why it matters is because of lack of evidence-based policies, countries like small island developing states in Fiji and Papua New Guinea, Samoa, you name it, they are adapting policies from New Zealand and Australia that does not work in our context. So this research really matters to me personally and also to the sector by large. And lastly, behind every financial statement, there is a human being. A human being that puts food on the table, a human being that is an equal player in the society, a human being that also has me here today standing before you and presenting this PhD topic that I'm so passionate about. So yeah, that is my PhD and this is my journey of the research so far. Thank you.